Okay, pre-cal students, in this video we will be studying the law of cosines. If you'll remember, there are some cases that the law of sines will not solve. And so because of this, we have to have the law of cosines for these other special cases in which the law of sines will not work, okay? So your heading for today is law of cosines. The lesson number is 13.2, and be sure and include today's date, okay? Be sure and include today's date. Now let's continue on. Here we go. We have done a lot of studying here lately on solving triangles, okay? Here are the cases or scenarios, whatever you want to call them, that we looked at earlier in a past video. Remember these 5 cases, okay? Well, I say 5, there's 4 numbers, but there's 2 right here, okay? Now, angle, angle, side, angle, side, angle, these can all be solved by using law of sines. However, we have 2 cases right here, side, 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 and side, angle, side, which cannot be solved by the law of sines. So these are the cases that we use the law of cosines, okay? All right, let's continue on. So notice that there are 2 cases that cannot be solved with the law of sines, okay? It is for these 2 cases that we need the law of cosines, okay? Here's the law. Here is the law of cosines. Please write this down. Here is the law, okay? Now, notice something. Go ahead and copy these down while I'm talking. Notice we have 3 of these, okay? But they're really the same formula. Now, please don't miss this, students. They're really the same formula. All you have to remember is this. If you have angle A here, then be sure and put side A over here, and the other 2 sides go here and here and here and here. And that's consistent all the way through the formula. If you have angle B here, then be sure and put the opposite side from B, which is little b, here, okay? And then the other 2 sides, A and C go here. Let me show you what I mean, okay? Watch this carefully. If you want to take some extra notes, feel free to. And if you don't, that's fine, okay? Now listen. In the law of cosines, all that I'm saying to you is this. If you have angle A right here, we'll say 35 degrees. Whatever angle you use, this does not even have to be A, this could be Z, okay? And this could be a length of 10. In the law of cosines, all that I'm saying to you is this. If you put 35 degrees here, then whatever the opposite side is, had better go here, okay? And then the other 2 sides, we'll call these 8 and 11, they would go here and here and here and here. So let me go over that again, okay? Whatever angle you choose to use goes here. The side opposite that angle is what always goes over here. And then the other 2 sides, whatever they are, they could be A, B, C, X, Y, Z, it doesn't matter. They will go here and here and here and here. Okay, let's practice some of these, see if we can help you understand this a little bit, okay? All right, here we go. Now, please trust me on this. The most mistakes are made when students are solving these formulas. It's not made when you're substituting the correct number in for the correct variable. That's usually not a problem, okay? The students usually get that correct. Occasionally they'll make a mistake in that area, but usually they'll get that right. But when the actual solving of the equation starts, after the numbers have been substituted in, that's where most students make a mistake. So please be careful when it comes time to solve the equation. And I'm going to try to help you with that today, okay? All right, here we go. Let's try to solve a couple of these triangles, okay? All right, let's go ahead and solve this triangle. Copy this in your notes if you would, please. We have triangle ABC. I think it's always really helpful to get a picture of the triangle, and I don't really care if we draw it to scale or not a big deal. So triangle ABC, and side A is 32, and side C is 48, and angle B is 125.2. Now let me pause and say something to you students right now, okay? Please listen to me very carefully. I'm going to give you some really good advice here, okay? So please listen carefully. If you're thinking that you have to go back here and memorize these scenarios so you know when to use law of sines and when not to use law of sines, and when to use law of cosines and when not to use law of sines, you do not need to do that, students. You do not need to do that. Listen to me. All that you have to realize is this. Do you have a pair right now? In other words, Do you have a side and its known angle? No. Do you have a pair here? Do you know this angle here? Yes. But do you know this side over here? No, you do not. Do you know this side here? Yes. But do you know its angle over here? No. So if nowhere do you have a pair of a known angle and the side across from it, then you can't use the law of sines. You have to use the law of cosines, okay? All right, let's continue on. Now, be very careful here. Notice we know two sides, okay? Be very careful on this. We have a side angle side scenario. When you have a side angle side scenario, here's what you do. You want to solve for this side over here first, okay? B. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put b squared. Now remember, stop right there. Remember, students, if you put a b here, then the angle across from it must go over here with the cosine. Please don't forget that. Always remember that, students. Whatever angle you put here with the cosine, the side across from that angle must go over here. And whatever side you put here, the angle across from that side must go over here. Please do not forget that, okay? All right, let's continue on. Now, this is the side we're solving for right here. My other two sides are 48 and 32. So right here, I put 48 squared plus 32 squared, and then minus 2 times 48, 32, like this. Now, students, please listen to me. Whenever you're using the law of cosines to solve for a missing side over here, you can type this whole expression right here into your calculator. You can type this entire thing into your calculator. Okay, so real quick with my calculator, I'm going to type in 48 squared plus, that is if you have a graphing calculator, 32 squared, and then minus 2, and then times 48 times 32, and then cosine of 125.2. Now make sure you're in degrees, of course. So I typed this whole thing in, this entire thing, and now I'm just going to hit enter. And I'm getting this right here. B squared equals 5,098 point, and then it's 8,00075. So I'm just going to call this 5,098.8, okay? In fact, to make it a little easier, I'm just going to round to the nearest whole number. So this 8 right here tells me to round this 8 here to a 9, okay? So, well, actually, what am I saying? We haven't taken the square root of both sides yet. Sorry about that. So we take the square root of both sides, and we'll get 71.4, okay? I'm going to go ahead and put 71 point, we'll just leave it 71, so 71 for B, okay? So look that, excuse me for a second. Look that over and see if you have any questions, okay? But we did find the length of B of 71. Now listen, students, once you have a pair, use the law of cosines, okay? Or the law of sines. Definitely use the law of sines. There's one thing you must know. Students, you cannot forget this. After you have used the law of sines and you're looking to solve either for this angle here or this angle here, if you forget this next thing I'm going to say, you will miss some of these on a test or a quiz, okay? You must always solve for, I'm going to put question marks here, you must always solve for the smallest angle first. Please don't forget that. You must always solve for the smallest angle first, okay? And you say, well, Mr. Aaron, how do we know which angle is smaller? The smallest angle is always across from the smallest side. So I'm trying to either decide if I should solve for this angle next or this angle next. So I go straight across, this is 48. I go straight across, this is 32. 32 is smaller than 48, so because this side over here is smaller, then this angle here is smaller. So you'd want to solve for angle A first. It's very, very, very important, okay? So now that we have a pair, and here's our pair right here, we're going to use the law of sines. The law of sines is much easier to use, okay? So here we go. 71 over the sine of 125.2 equals, now we're looking for the sine of A, angle A, so 32 over the sine of A, alright? So students, here we go. We're going to go ahead and cross multiply, and of course I would have this. We've done enough of these, we can skip some steps here. I would have 32 sine of 125.2 divided by 71. Okay, so next I would have sine of A equals, let me type this in my calculator real quick, 32 sine of 125.2 divided by 71 equals this right here, 0.3683, rounded of course, and then hit second sine of that number there, 0.3683, and you will get 21.6. I'm going to go ahead and put 22 degrees. So we found side B. Now we know angle A is 22 degrees. 22 degrees. And now very quickly we can find angle C by adding these two angles together and subtracting from 180. And if we do that correctly, we will get 32.8 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and just put 33 degrees, which is close enough, okay? So there we go. Pretty simple, okay, guys? So the law of cosines is used when you don't have a pair at the beginning of the problem. And remember, students, once you do get a pair and you start using the law of sines, make sure you solve for the smallest angle first. That's really, really, really important, okay? All right, let's try one more of these, okay? Let's try one more. Okay, students, let's go ahead and copy this in your notes if you would, please. We're dealing with triangle RST, and it's kind of good here, students, to get some different letters in here besides A, B, and C, okay? So this is good, because really with law of cosines, what you need to realize is whatever you put in for cosine of that angle, the opposite side is always all by itself on the left side of the equation, okay? And that's what you really need to know, all right? Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and draw our triangle here. So there's our triangle. And let's go ahead and pull it over here to get a little space. And we'll call this RST. R is 3.5. S would be 4.7. And T would be 2.8. Like this. Now, notice we have side, side, side. So we definitely have no pairs, okay? We have no pairs at all. So to solve this triangle, we're going to have to start out by finding an angle. Now, Mr. Earhart, do we have to solve for the smallest angle first? No, you do not. When you're using law of cosines, it does not matter which angle you solve for first, okay? However, remember, after you start using the law of sines, you must solve for the smallest angle first, okay? So please keep that in mind, okay? Here we go. It really doesn't matter which angle we solve for first. I'm just choosing R for the fun of it, okay? So here we go. 3.5 is the side across from the angle R, correct? So that's the side that goes here all by itself. Because over here, I'm going to put what? Cosine of what? R. That's the angle I'm trying to solve for, okay? Look that over, guys. Okay, I'm choosing to solve for this angle, so 3.5 is the side that goes over here. So the other two sides would be 2.8 squared plus 4.7 squared minus 2 times 2.8 and 4.7. Now here's where students get really confused. If you'll listen to me carefully, that will help you, okay? Please watch this carefully. Students forget what a term is, okay? This is a term right here all by itself. Then 2.8 squared is a term because there's a plus sign here. 4.7 squared is a term because there's a minus sign here. All of these are being multiplied together. So if all of these are being multiplied together, then this is one big term right here, students. That's one term, okay? Got that? So a lot of students like to square this number here, square this number here, and then take this number here and subtract it from these numbers here, and you can't do that. This whole group has to stay together. That's one term. Okay, and I'm going to show you what to do in just a second, okay? So here we go with my calculator. I'm going to type in 3.5 squared, and I'm going to get 12.25. Let me change my color back to red here so y'all can see it a little better. Okay, 2.8 squared gives you 7.84. Okay, 4.7 squared would be 22.09. And then minus, we have 2 times 2.8 times 4.7 would give you 26.32. 26.32 cosine of r. Okay? Now, here's where we got to be very careful. We're solving for r, and we know that, okay? So it's totally fine to bring this over and make it negative. That's very normal. You should do that. And it's totally okay to bring this over and make it negative. That's totally normal. In fact, let's go ahead and do that real quick. So 12.25 minus 7.84 minus 22.09 gives me negative 17.68 equals negative 26.32 cosine of r. Now, because these are multiplying, now we divide both sides by negative 26.32. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. A lot of students like to bring this over and make it positive, this number right here, and you cannot do that. It is multiplying times the cosine of r. Thus, this is one term right here, okay? So here we go, 26.32 equals, and so we're left with cosine of r, 17.68 divided by 26.32. Negative divided by negative is a positive, 0.6717, okay? And of course I rounded that. Now I'm going to hit second cosine of that decimal, and I'm going to get 47.79, so 48 degrees. Okay, now watch that again if you need to, okay? So this angle here is 49 degrees. And now students, look, you have a pair, and you want to use law of sines. Law of sines is so much faster, okay? So I'm going to say 3.5 over sine of 49. Now, students, think about this. Look, I'm either going to solve for angle S or angle T. Okay, now look. Remember, you want to solve for the smaller angle. So angle T is across from 2.8. Angle S is across from 4.7. 2.8 is smaller, so angle T is smaller. So I'm going to solve for angle T. So I'm going to put 2.8 over the sine of T. Okay? And now if you cross multiply and then divide, you will get this. Sine of T equals 2.8 times the sine of 49 degrees all over 35. So sine of T equals, get my calculator here, 2.8 sine 49 degrees, enter, divided by 35, enter, I'm getting 0.06037676664, okay? So now hit second sine, since you're looking for an angle, second sine of that decimal, and you will get this right here. You will get 3.46. I wonder if that's correct. Let me check my work here real quick. 0.06, 2.8 sine 49 divided by 3.5. Sorry, students. Okay, so that's definitely mistake number one of the day. I'm sure there's many more to come before the class period is over. So here we go. All right. .8 sine of 49 degrees, enter, divided by 3.5, enter, and you should get this right here. 0.6037676642. Hit second sine of that decimal, and you'll get 37.1, and I'm just going to call it 37. And then, of course, we can very quickly find this angle here by taking 49 plus 37 and subtracting that from 180, and we'll get 94 degrees. So this angle here is 94 degrees, okay? So there we go. Now I want to show you something, by the way. If you would have, now listen to me, students, very carefully. If you would have used the law of sines to solve for S right here, you would have gotten the wrong answer out, because the law of sines only gives you answers less than 90. Now listen to me. So this angle here, you would have got now, let's see. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, if you would have used the law of sines to solve for angle S, you would have got 80, let's see, 86 degrees, I believe, instead of 94, because law of sines only gives you angles out that are less than 90. Okay, so that's why it's very important after you've used the law of cosines to be sure, and then solve for the smallest angle first using law of sines. Okay, all right, very good. Hope this makes sense. And I hope you guys can hear me okay. So my voice is really bad today. Okay, continue on. Here we go. So let's take a look at some more notes here, okay? So we've used the law of sines to solve two triangles so far, okay? Let's continue on. Now, what if I started to throw any oblique triangle at you and I asked you to solve the triangle? What would you do? I mean, remember, on a test, the triangles will be all mixed together. When do I use law of sines? When do I use law of cosines, etc.? So I would like to give you a step-by-step plan that will help you solve any oblique triangle. Now, I think there's 3 steps, okay? Here's my advice to the supervising teacher. Here's what I would do. I'm going to put the steps up here, and I'm not going to wait for you guys to write it down. So I would pause the video and make sure all the students have these steps written down, and then go ahead and restart the video, okay? So here are the steps. Okay, here we go. If you know two angles, quickly and easily find the third angle. That's common sense, okay? Use the law of sines if you're able. So if you have a pair, always use the law of sines first. However, if you're not able to, then use the law of cosines. But listen, guys, remember, if you start off using the law of sines with a triangle that has side angle, we learned this before, remember, there's always the possibility of having no solution, or one solution, or two solutions, okay? So please don't forget to check for this. If you're using law of sines at the very beginning of a problem and you're given side angle, then make sure you check for no solution, one solution, or two solutions, okay? After you've done the first 2 steps, you can use either law, but please do this one thing. And we've talked about this already. If you're solving for an angle after you've done steps 1 and 2, be sure and solve for the what first? The smaller of the 2 unknown angles. Okay, the smaller angle will always be across from the smaller side. This is very, very important, okay? Okay, go ahead and pause the video until everybody's copied these down, and then we'll continue on, okay? Now let me throw a random oblique triangle at you, and let's use these 4 steps, or these, excuse me. They used to be 4 steps. I can condense them down. Let's use these 3 steps, okay? So here we go. All right, go ahead and copy this in your notes, and let's solve this triangle, okay? Here we go. Triangle A, B, C. Angle B is 110 degrees, okay? Angle C is 8 degrees, and C is 0.912. Now, first of all, anytime you're given 2 angles, quickly find the third angle, okay? So 110 plus 8 minus 180 will give you 72 degrees. So now we know angle A equals 72 degrees, okay? Now, let's go ahead and write that in here so we have that. And now we have, let's write this in, we have a pair also. So we can definitely use law of cosines, okay? Law of sines. But before we do that, before we use law of sines, did our original problem have side angle? If our original problem has side angle, then we must check for one solution or no solution or 2 solutions, okay? Well, here's our original information. A side, an angle, and an angle. So no, we were not given side angle. Our original knowns was an angle side. So we can go ahead and use law of sines and have no problem with this at all, okay? So here we go, law of sines. I have 0.912 goes over sine of 8 equals Now it really doesn't matter if you solve for B or A. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for A. So A over sine of 72. Cross multiply and divide, and you'll get 0.912 sine of 72 over the sine of 8. Okay, so with my calculator real quicker, let me type that in. 0.912 sine of 72, enter, divided by sine of 8, enter, and I'm getting this right here. 6.23. So A would be 6.23. And then very quickly, using my ratio that I already have right here, now we're going to solve for side B. So side B over cosine of what? Or excuse me, sine of what? Sine of 110. Okay, so cross multiply and divide, and we have 0.912 sine of 110 over the sine of 8. Let's type that in quickly. 0.912 sine of 110 equals, divided by sine of 8 equals, I'm getting this for B. I hope I'm typing it in correctly. 0.615779676, so 0.616 would work. Okay, so B equals 6.16. Students, in closing the video today, let me say this to you. There's two things I want you to remember. Please listen to me. Always look at your first, and you can write this down or just listen. Always look at your first knowns, okay? And if your first knowns are side angle, please don't forget to check for no solution, one solution, or two. Secondly, after you've used the law of cosines one time and then you solve for a missing angle, be sure and solve for the what first? The smaller angle. Okay, very, very important. The smaller angle. Solve for the smaller angle first, okay? Now, on your homework tonight, or your homework I'm going to give you, I will be giving some word problems to you, but they're still solved by using the law of cosines, okay? So work hard on those and use the homework video to help you if you have any questions, okay? Okay, contact me if you have any questions, guys, and make sure you really understand how to use the law of cosines.